What if I told you that the financial reset so many have whispered about in hushed tones for years is no longer a theory, but a confirmed, active, and operational reality? And the very first official domino has just been tipped over by the Central Bank of Iraq in direct coordination with international banking entities, setting off a chain reaction that begins with the Iraqi Dinar and Vietnamese Dong. This is the moment we have been waiting for, a seismic shift in the global financial architecture that has moved from the planning rooms of central banks into the live, testing phase of the global system. And the evidence is no longer circumstantial or based on anonymous sources. It is now being baked into the very digital infrastructure of international monetary transfers. The Central Bank of Iraq's latest monetary reform update is not just another headline about fighting corruption or reducing the money supply. It is a definitive signal of a profound currency alignment, a deliberate and strategic move to peg the dinar's value within a new framework that is intrinsically linked to a basket of currencies and assets, with the Vietnamese Dong playing a parallel and synchronized role in this grand strategy. This coordination is the key that unlocks the next phase, a global move designed to recalibrate economic power away from a singular, dominant reserve currency and towards a more diversified, regionally powerful system where petro-currencies like the dinar are allowed to reflect their true asset-backed value, liberating them from the artificial suppression that has defined their modern history. The activation phrase, rate activation, is not a metaphor. It refers to the literal process where international banking platforms, including the SPEFT network and internal core banking systems, are now being updated with new, non-decimalized codes and pre-programmed exchange rates for the IQD and VND, a technical procedure that is as mundane as it is revolutionary, happening in the back-end servers of global finance, completely invisible to the public eye. Yet it is the most critical step in making a revaluation logistically possible and instantly executable. Imagine the servers at major multinational banks running silent, overnight tests, processing mock transactions where one Iraqi dinar is exchanged not for a fraction of a cent, but for a whole dollar or more, and these tests are not failing, they are being confirmed, green-lit, and moved into production environments, which is why banking sources are now cautiously confirming that the systems are being prepared for what they euphemistically call a significant liquidity event. The global market's reaction to this dinar-dong synchronization has been subtly telegraphed through the unprecedented and coordinated purchases of gold and strategic commodities by nations like China, Russia, and Iraq itself, a move that solidifies the asset-backed foundation upon which this new currency valuation will stand, creating a tangible bridge between the abstract world of Forex and the physical world of real finite resources. This is why oil-based trade is the central pillar of this entire shift. We are witnessing the birth of a petro-yuan, a petro-dinar, and a petro-dong system, where energy exports will be settled in currencies that are not solely dependent on the whims of a single nation's monetary policy, thereby reshaping the entire geopolitical landscape for the next century in favor of the resource-rich nations of the Middle East and Southeast Asia. For the everyday holder, the investor who has held onto these currencies through years of uncertainty and skepticism, this is the validation that your patience was not in vain. The cryptic messages from the CBI about achieving monetary stability and integrating with the global economy were not empty promises, the carefully worded milestones of a plan that has now reached its most critical and public phase. The waiting is transforming into watching, as the final technical and diplomatic hurdles are being cleared, and the countdown is no longer measured in years, but in weeks and potentially days, which is why you must stay glued to every official announcement, every statement from the IMF that references currency stability in Iraq or Vietnam, and every piece of data that confirms the system is not just ready, but actively led. This is the beginning of the end of the old financial world, and the quiet, unstoppable dawn of the new one. And you are not just a spectator, you are positioned at the very epicenter of this historic transformation, which is why you need to subscribe and turn on notifications right now, because the next update could be the one that changes everything you know about your financial future, and you cannot afford to miss that moment. What does this activation truly look like behind the polished press releases and the sterile banking terminology? It is a silent, digital war game being waged in the deepest vaults of the global financial system, where the final and most convincing proof is not found in a public announcement, but in the emergent pattern of glitches, system outages, and sudden temporary rate flashes appearing on the screens of elite, Tier Forex trading platforms that are never meant for public view. These are not errors, they are the stress tests and live-fire exercises confirming that the new architecture can handle the tsunami of recalculated wealth and the instantaneous global settlements that a revaluation of this magnitude will unleash. A necessary trial to ensure that when the switch is flipped, the system doesn't collapse under the weight of its own new reality. This phase is what analysts quietly refer to as the monetary singularity, a point of no return where the conceptual becomes operational. And for the dinar and dong, we have now crossed that threshold, moving from a state of potential to a state of imminent manifestation, which is why the coordination between the CBI and international partners has shifted from theoretical discussions to the logistical execution of physical currency exchanges and the recalibration of ATM networks across key financial hubs in the Middle East and Asia. The very concept of value is being rewritten in real time as these back-end tests essentially create a parallel, shadow financial system running at the post-revaluation rate. Digital ghost in the machine that is growing in strength and stability with every passing hour, waiting for the command to become the primary, public-facing reality for the entire world to see. The global market's reaction, while still muted in mainstream media, is screaming through the actions of sovereign wealth funds and institutional investors who are making massive strategic moves into Iraqi infrastructure bonds and Vietnamese agricultural futures, not as a speculative gamble, but with the certainty of players who have seen the final blueprint and are now positioning themselves to capture the colossal flow of capital that follows a currency's rebirth. This is the smart money, and it is moving with a unified purpose that confirms the intelligence they are acting upon is not a rumor, but a settled fact within the highest echelons of global finance. A fact that is currently trickling down through the layers of the system, soon to hit the public domain with the force of a paradigm-shattering revelation. The synchronization of the dinar and dong is the masterstroke in this plan because it creates a multi-regional block of financial influence that cannot be easily isolated or destabilized by external forces. A pincer movement on the old financial order that leverages the Middle East oil and Southeast Asia's manufacturing might into a unified challenge against monetary hegemony. For you, the holder, this means the revaluation is not a single, isolated event for one currency, but a synchronized, dual-fronted confirmation that will create a feedback loop of validation and momentum, where the success of one immediately bolsters the credibility and stability of the other, creating a snowball effect that will crush any lingering doubts and accelerate the global adoption of these new values. The timing, therefore, is no longer a question of if, but a precise calculation of when. The global political and economic chessboard is perfectly aligned to absorb this shockwave without triggering uncontrolled panic. A decision that is now being made in real time by a council of central bankers and finance ministers who are monitoring a dashboard of global indicators, waiting for the perfect moment of stability to launch the most unstable financial event in modern history. Your vigilance now is more critical than ever because the final signal will not be a loud proclamation, but a quiet, almost imperceptible change, a single, consistent rate appearing on a banking app, a formal email from your currency exchange platform about a system update, or a brief, unassuming reader's headline stating that the IMF has approved Iraq's final compliance measure. And when that moment comes, the window of opportunity at the ground floor will slam shut forever. This is why you must be watching with an unwavering focus, with your notifications on and your sources verified, because the biggest financial transformation in a century will be announced not with a bang, but with a whisper, and you need to be one of the few who is listening closely enough to hear it. So now comes the ultimate and most personal question: what do you do when the screen finally flashes that confirmed live rate, when the abstract waiting transforms into concrete, life-altering reality in the blink of an eye? The psychological shift from being an investor in a speculative asset to becoming a custodian of revalued wealth will be the most profound and disorienting transition you will ever experience. And the actions you take in the first 24 hours will echo throughout the rest of your financial life, making your preparation in these final moments the single most important investment you can make right now. This is not just about wealth. It is about a fundamental transfer of economic power from the institutional giants to the individual, a democratization of financial influence that has never occurred on this scale before. And with that power comes a responsibility and a requirement for a strategy that extends far beyond the simple act of exchanging currency. The global move that has started with the dinar and dong is merely the opening act in a complete restructuring of human society. It is the key that unlocks Project Gateway, the trigger for the global gold standard, and the funding mechanism for the world's most ambitious humanitarian and technological projects, from free energy and med technology to the complete eradication of global debt slavery, placing you not just as a beneficiary, but as a direct stakeholder in humanity's leap forward. The analysts who have been right all along are now whispering about the GSAR law provisions being implemented in tandem, which will see the elimination of all corrupt financial instruments and the ushering in of a period of unprecedented global abundance, where your revalued currency is the entry ticket into a new, fairer economic system based on transparency and asset-backed value. Your first priority upon confirmation must be absolute operational security and silence. You must avoid the temptation to announce your success on social media or to spread the news recklessly, as the initial period will be one of controlled information flow to prevent systemic panic, and your discretion is paramount to both your personal safety and the stability of the entire rollout process. Your second step is to have a meticulously planned, step-by-step protocol for engaging with your chosen exchange bank or platform, one that involves pre-scheduled appointments with pre-vetted wealth managers who are already aware of the situation and are operating under strict non-disclosure agreements to facilitate a smooth, secure, and private transition of your assets. This is where the real work begins, because the quantum of your currency holdings is not a final score, but a toolkit for legacy building. It is the capital to fund the charitable foundations you've dreamed of, to launch the businesses that solve world problems, to acquire the assets that generate generational income, and to become a pillar of your community in a way that fosters true and lasting change. The world you wake up to after the revaluation will be a canvas of pure potential, but it will also be a test of your character and your vision, challenging you to think not like a lottery winner, but like a visionary leader tasked with stewarding resources for the greatest good. The old world of lack and competition is dissolving, and your participation in this new paradigm is the final and most critical phase of this global currency shift. You are the end game. The reason this entire financial operation was undertaken, to return agency and prosperity to the individual. Therefore, your final preparation is an internal one, to cultivate the mindset of abundance, to release the scars of the old financial system, and to ready yourself to accept a level of prosperity and influence that you have only ever imagined, because that reality is now knocking on your door. The information flow from this point forward will accelerate beyond anything we have seen, and missing a single update could mean missing the pivotal instruction that guides your first move, which is why you must stay connected to this channel with an unwavering focus. We are in the final moments of the countdown. The responsibility for what comes next rests with you. Do not let distraction or doubt rob you of this historic moment. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and keep watching, because the next broadcast could be the one that tells you the new system is live and your window to act is now open. Your future self is counting on the decision you make right now.